We had a flyer?
Yes. It was done at the, oh,
I
it
had
looks
no.
like we're about to go live. Yeah, it was done like later. Because it had to be changed.
Okay,
Um,
say it's live now.
yes.
Okay.
Okay, I'm waiting for it to come up. I'm waiting for it to stay live on my end.
Well, I see it on the top. It says live on Facebook
Oh,
at the top of the Zoom screen.
okay. Yeah, let me, yeah. All righty. So we'll get started. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Margaret Stout, and I am the Community Partnerships Associate for Sister Reach. And today I have two lovely guests with me today. We will be discussing the I Am a Voter Town Hall. Up top, I don't know if you all are seeing it the way that I have it, but up top I have Councilwoman Michael, and I apologize, Michael and Easter Thomas. And I have Commissioner Tammy Sawyer. How y'all doing today?
Doing great.
Glad to be here.
I'm glad that y'all are here. So if I guess we can get right into it, right into the questions, right? Okay. All right, so I'll start from last year. In 2019, during the mayoral election, less than 100,000 people voted in the city of Memphis. What steps can be taken so that we can increase these voter numbers for future elections? And I'll start with you, Michael.
You say you're starting with me, Margaret?
Yes.
Okay, so bear with me. My internet is trash back here. But I think as this is a great year, as is every year to vote, but this is the greatest year thus far, especially for folks in my age bracket, for thinking about how we can get as many people as possible to the polls in November. I did not get an exact count for the primaries this past 2 weeks ago. However, I know that we have to exhaust all efforts through all organizations, all communities, all people to just push as many folks as we can, as our lives and the predictability of our livelihoods definitely depend on what happens November 3rd. So there are many organizations that are already out there who are doing a lot of work, such as Memphis for All, such as Black Voters Matter, we have on here, and Tammy Sawyer, and we need to figure out how to support their efforts. And also something else that has come to Memphis as well, Respect My Vote. That's another organization that's trying to help get the millennials out to vote. So I think as we support organizations that are doing the work, seeing how we can figure out how to spread out their efforts across our city and our region, so that we can just get as many people possible to the polls. I said I'm trying to commit to, I haven't figured out a certain number yet, but I'm trying to commit to a personal number of how many people that I can account for to get to the polls in November. And I would encourage every elected official, every leader, every community leader to do the same.
Okay. And Tammy?
So I think what's going to be, most important for us in increasing numbers and increasing turnout is really how we are approaching people who aren't considered your average voter. A lot of times when elections happen, for example, when the election happened last week, this Tennessee election, people were quick to say, oh, no young people voted. Where were the millennials? Where was Gen Z? But instead of shaming people, asking yourself, why didn't they feel roused to show up to the polls? And those are the answers. Those are the questions we really have to answer. I don't think it's enough to say to people under 30 who are likely to never get Social Security, to be saddled with debt, just for trying to get to college, to be living in one of the highest rates of mass incarceration, COVID-19, not being able to go to school, underpaid wages at jobs. I could go on and on. and then say, well, but you have to vote. Because the connection's not there. It's not in our educational plans to teach our youth why voting matters, because if they voted, things would change. But we have to help them see that. And so there's a lot of things. I'm National Field Director with Black Voters Matter, as well as a county commissioner. And there's, we're going to have a Black male town hall where some of our Black male organizers are just going to talk to the brothers. Because we talk about Black women all the time, and I'm a Black woman, so I'll talk about Black women all day, right? Shout out to Kamala, Black women, right? But the brothers want to know, like, where do they fit in this? And men, as men, traditionally, they've had, there's privilege there. But for Black men, they are still underpaid and over incarcerated. And we have to figure out what conversations they want to have and need to have in order to get them to the polls. It's not about, so the next 3 months for me is going to be figuring out how we reduce those interpersonal barriers to get people to the polls.
Yeah, I agree. It kind of made me just think about what's been going on as far as the protests, and I've been noticing it's been a bit of headbutting going on between the men and the women, and I feel that if we do have like different types of town halls to see what different people's needs are, because everybody's struggle doesn't look the same. We're all struggling in different ways. So I think it's important that we understand that every struggle is individual. It's not lumped all into one, So I definitely agree with that. Okay. So what political branding, if any, is being used to get the inner city residents to the polls for the presidential election? Have you noticed any?
I think to the point of what we were just saying, not enough. But the cool thing, so before we voted last week, short story, my cousin is Tay Keith's manager and producer and rapper, for those who don't know. But and yeah, so I texted him and I said, because when the protest happened, they reached out to me and were like, where can we donate? So I connected them with like Black Lives Matter. And so I was just thinking about the election coming up, and like, what, 3-4 hours before the polls open, middle of the night, I text them and said, can we get a quick PSA from Tay Keith on Instagram? Just be like, yo, what's up, everybody in Memphis? I need you to go vote. This your boy Tay Keith. They didn't do it. We're going to talk about that, but they didn't do it. But I think that that's one way, right? And it's not just that rappers are the only ones who people listen to, but I mean, if I had an sane amount of money, I'd be like, Gotti, we need you to do billboards. Tay Keith, we need you to do some IG PSAs. Deuce, we need a video of you at the poll, like early voting. Yeah. Because we see the influence, we see it in how people dance, we see it in how our youth dress, we see it in so many ways. And so, like, Duke Deuce wears a pair of blue Nikes, everybody gonna go buy it. So wear them Nikes to go vote.
Yeah.
And make voting cool again.
Yes, I agree. And Michael?
Yeah. I also think that, like, on one hand, I would love to see just a resurgence in making voting look, cool. But then we also got to be real with people. Like, voting ain't it's not pretty. It's not glamorous. It's not exciting. Just going away in line, you pushing the button. But it's like, what comes after? And that feeling that you're able to change something and you're able to help others and you're able to make decisions is what needs to be pushed also in that narrative. But as Tammy said, it's about those interpersonal connections with people. We have to be able to have folks make relationships with their vote. You have to see where your vote is going to matter. So I know with me, particularly when I was on the campaign trail and when I taught government and history and SCS, I wouldn't just start out with saying, as a lot of other folks say, your ancestors died for this right. You got to You need to go ahead and do it. There's no connection with it, right? But if you're asking people what matters to you, what do you do in your life that you wish was better or that you wish would stay constant? And then finding a way to connect it with casting your vote in any election, local or national. And so just to reiterate on what Tammy said, we have to figure out how to make those relationships connect and how to make those connections tangible for everyone so they can really see why voting really does matter. Every vote matters, whether it's electoral college or not. It's going to vote, because if we don't have the numbers, we're definitely not ever going to get the outcome that folks think we are. If you think we're struggling now in the midst of a pandemic that a lot of people have never even seen, if we don't get that turnout that we need in November, it's going to be exacerbated to so many levels that we aren't going to know what to do for as far as our income, as far as our health, as far as our schooling, as far as our assistance, as far as our businesses. We are going to be in trouble. And just finding ways to make those relationships connect, make those connections tangible, so people can really have a reason to go, and to see how we can help people feel like they can be accountable for their friends, for their families, for their partners.
I agree. And my next question it kind of ties into what you both were saying about being. I feel like a lot of political branding, or lack thereof, it excludes the voter. We need all votes, but the part that we really need to pinpoint on, people are forgetting when they create these events. You already got people that are already registered to vote. They already know about policy, so it's like you're bouncing a ball in a closed room. So, with that being said, what tools would you recommend for people that are new voters to gain a better understanding of politics?
I think that, so there's been some cool things that have come out. This past election, Kirsten Cheers, a Memphian, made a voter guide where she broke down what each position is. I think Michael touched on this, and so did you, Margaret. And it's really important to know, we could tell people to go vote, but sometimes the ballot kind of, runs people off. They don't know what a chancery clerk is. I didn't know what a chancery clerk was. I was like, cool, we got 15 clerks. They didn't know what a clerk was. They don't know what a commissioner really does. They don't know what a councilman does. Me and Michael we represent the same district for the most part. There's some, but for the most part, we overlap. And, we get called to do stuff that the other one needs to do, or that neither of us can do. And, I think that the best tool is educating yourself, or just doing some research, a quick Google on what these positions are and what they do, so that you're not voting for a person. What we say at Black Voters Matter all the time is that Black people, we should be voting our issues. We should be voting based on, make a list of what you want to see electeds do, what you want to see them talk about. And then if you go to somebody's website, or if you go to their Facebook page and you're like, hey, I want groceries, I want access to fresh food in my neighborhood. And, Tammy Sawyer's never said anything about that, but Margaret Stout has. Actually, she talks about it a lot. So I'm going to vote for Margaret Stout. Not, man, Tammy Sawyer wore that 5 hot pink headband. So I'm going to vote for her, right? Because then me and my pink headband are in there, and 4 years later, you still don't have the grocery store you want. So I think the best tool out there is yourself. Make a list of what you want to see changed in your community, in your life, in your family's life, and then compare that to what you're being promised by the people who are running.
And I would add to that, also we definitely have to do our individual research, as Tammy said. But also, if you're a new voter, look out for someone that you can trust, someone that you know that you can discuss politics with, and not making it such a taboo subject and conversation that you don't want to have. I know a lot of people would say, well, I don't do politics, I don't talk politics. From the time you wake up to the time you go to sleep, you're doing politics. You're talking politics. You're not voting is a vote. It's a vote for the other way. Everything you do is impacted by the decisions someone in government makes, no matter how independent we may think we are as Americans. Stuff don't move, or it may not move at all, depending on who's in office. So I would say find that one person. It can be somebody in your family, somebody at work, a mentor, an advisor, one of your friends. You need to have a political trust buddy, somebody who you can talk with and say, hey, I've been looking at this candidate. What do you think about what they're saying? Or I don't know what a clerk is, but I know you know. So who do you think that I should consider voting for? Who are the top two? And I think that not only helps you with your own personal individual research, but it also gives room for conversation to grow and making it more normalized in our communities, especially the Black communities. Politics should be something that we're talking about at the dinner table. With COVID, if we're at home for the most part, we need to be talking about politics at least weekly to see what's been happening. Has anybody been watching the meetings online? Who's been keeping up with the news? Any new laws that have come out lately? So finding that person to trust, to be able to have those conversations with, and then that helps with your own individual research, because then not only are you just going by what you think, but also somebody else that you trust to be able to do that too.
And I will say the younger demographic around 18 to 25, I definitely have noticed a change as far as more political talk. I remember when I was 18, I mean, I knew a little, but it's not like how I'm seeing the kids on Twitter now. They're involved, and it's a sight to see. It's like we're coming on around. We're definitely coming around. So that's definitely exciting for me. Okay. So with the heavily suggested option of absentee ballots for the presidential election, do you feel like that would leave room for possible voter suppression? Especially hearing what's going on with USPS and things like that.
So currently the Tennessee Supreme Court has said that we cannot do what we did in August, which you can't check COVID as a reason for COVID-19 as a reason for voting from home, for absentee voting. So yeah, expect a couple lawsuits around that, I'm sure. But I would just say that because of that, it's going to be confusing too, because a lot of people who registered to absentee vote because of the COVID-19 for the August election think that that means they're registered to absentee vote for November. So all of this work that like voter advocates and electeds are going to have to do, we now have to like communicate this change to people. A lot of people don't know what just happened. My own mom was like, no, we're registered for, we're going to get our ballot. I said, no, ma'am. I was like, that was for August. So a lot of folks and a lot of people over 50 and 60 did vote that way. And now we got to tell them, hey, pandemic's not over, but you got to go to the poll. Unless you use your age as a reason not to vote. But for the rest of us who voted from home and don't have one of the conditions listed on the ballot, COVID-19 is not going to be an option anymore. I think that the fear that Black people especially have had of vote by mail is warranted. You know, I mean, the fear of, is your vote even going to be counted at the polling location, right? We have watched voter fraud and voter suppression as long as we've been able to vote in this country and before then. But I think that it's important if you just know that you don't want to risk it. I voted in person. The process was simple. I was one of 2 people in there. They give you your own pen. But if you need to stay home, I would rather you vote and at least get the ballot in. Let it be on the election commission if they mess it up. And know you have resources. NAACP, ACLU, if there's some type of fraud, if your vote doesn't get counted, if your ballot gets lost, there are people and voter protection hotlines and people ready to do lawsuits and just ready to fight on your behalf.
I agree with what Tammy said. Also, I don't know, Margaret, if you're looking on your Facebook Live and get questions, but I started a watch party, and of course, people are asking questions on mine. But I have a question that I don't know the answer to. Maybe you or, and then my dog's in the background, so maybe you or Tammy know. But one question was, who appoints the election coordinator in the Shelby County Election Commission?
I don't
The
know.
governor. So the election commissioner is appointed by the governor. None of that is done locally. And the election commissioners are, there is a law that requires it to match the makeup of the state, not your county, which is why we have more Republican election commissioners than we have Dems, because it matches the makeup of the state. And so those positions are appointed and reappointed by the governor.
Okay.
And to get appointed as a Dem by the governor, you know, you kind of have to be a little moderate or middle of the road, because our governors have been Republican for so long, you know, they're not just going to appoint someone who is out there hollering voter suppression, even though Benny surprisingly got appointed. But that's the answer. The governor.
Okay. And I'm gonna go ahead and move on. All right, so as Black women, do you feel like Black voters really trust Black women candidates locally and nationally?
No, I think, and I'm just gonna be real transparent here, but I think no. I think it sounds cool to say. I think it looks good to say you support and you trust Black women in politics, but it's just so much disrespect. It's a lack of transparency and honesty that's given to us, that's shown towards us. And this is coming from all types of people, including other Black women. It's a lack of wanting to show advisement or mentorship, especially when you're young as well. And so no, I don't think people do unless it's convenient for them to act like they do. And I won't say that that's the majority of people, but I will say that that's been my experience these lovely months since January, and from just viewing other politicians' roles and struggles, it seems as though this is apparent for a lot of Black women politicians. So.
And I'll just hop in and say, and we work our butts off. Most of the things that the people in our communities are asking for, the resolutions, I mean, we talk at least via text dang on near every day, you know, and because we're getting hit up by the same people, you know, asking us to look at the same stuff. I won't say that our male counterparts don't work as hard, but there's something about elected women that make people, it's almost like that take care of home type thing, right? Edmund Ford tells this story. We were in DC and we were doing a tour and we were on this bus together. And I was saying something about, I'm gonna spend this time on the bus to get my emails down to like at least 100, unread. He's like, 100 unread? I haven't gotten 100 emails since we started office. And I was like, how many emails do you get a day? He was like, if I don't count like my subscriptions, maybe 4 or 5. I literally get anywhere a low number for me a day is 50. That's a low number. Like, and exactly. And yet, and still, we are also, to Michaelin's point, not just, even if I take the personal aspect out of it, I mean, I've been enraged. Kamala Harris was not my presidential candidate, but as a Black woman, watching her, knowing what a Black woman goes through, even if they're not elected, everything she's experienced, regardless of how you feel about her having been a prosecutor, regardless of how you feel about anything about her, knowing what it took for her to stick with it, to be able to be the first Black woman nominated VP of the Democratic Party, if y'all can't stop and give her a round of applause before you dive into everything else, then you can't really talk to me about Black women. Because the struggle, I mean, people talk about her white husband, but they don't talk about the fact that she didn't get married till she was 49 because she was working. You know what I mean? Like, and so I think that this has become, this whole Trust Black Women thing really came about because we carried Hillary Clinton when nobody else did. When it was expected, white women should have voted for her in the numbers we voted for her. So then they gave us a clap on the back because no one expected Trump to win, but they never really wanted to give us the respect or the position. And that's what we're still struggling with now. I mean, white women are enraged on social media that it's not Elizabeth Warren who's the VP. And they're like, why do we always have to talk about race? But it was Trust Black Women last week.
And was. With that being said,
it'll be there after November too.
Right, because we still gonna do what we supposed to do.
That's it.
Don't get me started.
Now get started. But as Black women who have run for office, how did you navigate the negative and the positive commentary about your running as Black women? Just like how we talked about, especially now that Kamala Harris is potential VP. And I saw a lot of yours that played out publicly, Tammy, and it was just ridiculous, like how they do Black women. It's ridiculous. That was my sidebar, but boy.
I appreciate it. Thank you. It's enough to make you question why you're doing this. I'm a single Black woman. I don't have children. I'm not married. I'm under 40. And that even came under critique. What's her sexuality? Because I'm not married. Kamala Harris, y'all don't want to marry us. Y'all y'all don't want to do right. That's a whole other town hall. We got that town hall after 6. But the point is, it's tough. I will say, my parents, I mean, there were times when I felt like I was like 12 again. I would just walk in my parents' house and I could barely close the door without crying. And that's a big burden on your family, so you just have to have a strong support system. For me, it was my parents, it was my closest friends who, like, in a drop of a dime, I could be like, I need you right now. Right. I need to laugh. I need a drink, whatever it is. But it's one, I would not have gotten through this. I don't know. Anybody who says they make it through this stuff alone, they've got the strength of Hercules, because for me, Yeah, and they're like,
They're lying.
it was a strong support system. And one thing that in therapy, my God, Black women, please do it. I will say prayer. And even though prayer, my ancestors, because I pray to God and I talk to my granny. And, and I will also say that two quick things. Knowing other Black women got through this, that's why I'm like in love with Kamala's VP pick, because of what it means, right? It means this isn't in vain. The work that, like, it's not in vain for us to spend this time in these seats with this scrutiny, with the pain that comes with these seats, because we can also keep breaking that ceiling. We can keep fighting to make change and represent. And so, Fannie Lou Hamer is like my adopted auntie. I love her to death. Like, I swear, And so, like, just when I think about the things that she went to, that she walked 17 miles to vote and then got beaten by the police after voting, I'm like, I can take them calling me the N-word and a B and fat and, asking about my sexuality and talking about why I don't have kids and all of this stuff. If Fannie Lou Hamer could survive walking 17 miles in Mississippi and then getting beaten and almost dying in a jail cell just to cast a ballot. So I draw on the strength of the people who've been there before. And then it's the kids. If I go in Kroger right now, somebody, little baby, gonna be like cheesing and waving, and just like I need Fannie Lou Hamer, right? Just like I draw strength from Kamala, I'm doing this. They remind me that this isn't for me. This is for the next generation too.
Because I need a Tammy. We, like Tammy said, we're drawing from the strength of others, and if some struggles shouldn't have to be passed down, and it just seems like Black women just keep passing the same struggle down to each other, and that's not blaming it on ourselves, but just society as a whole of what it is now in America. So definitely reiterating, just supporting what Tammy just said with that question.
Okay, thank you.
So thank you, Tammy, for your service. A lot of us are looking at you in an inspiring, and just the way that you do things and the way that you're thinking and the way that you engage with the community. We don't see that often. And so I just want to take time to say thank you to Tammy.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Michael.
Okay. All right. So what do you think will drive the people to the polls in November this year? What issues?
It's tough. It's a tough time to organize. COVID-19 has really waylaid a lot of plans. The president is crazy, but people are desensitized too, right? And they're just trying to survive. I still think that there's some impact of the summer protests, the deaths of Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery and George Floyd. I still think I think that drove people to vote and participate in August. I think that COVID-19 did as well. I don't know if that lasts for 3 more months though. Trump says something crazy every day. Today he was like, I'm cutting off Social Security if I win again. But how many people are going to respond to that or have tuned him out? That's the hard part, So, again, I'm hoping what drives people to the polls, even as I'm not a huge Joe Biden fan, but I believe in what that administration could be made up of more than the Trump administration. And so hopefully what drives people to the polls is just exhaustion with what the last 4 years has been. But sometimes that's not enough.
That's right. And for the record, Donald Trump's Twitter should have been suspended a long time ago. I've never seen anything like that. Every morning, like right at sunrise, he'll get his tweets off. And I've never seen anything like this before. It's crazy. But yeah, Michaelin, do you have an answer for that one?
I'm just saying the same thing as Tammy said and reiterating the point of a lot of folks are desensitized. I don't look at him on the TV anymore. I just can't. It hurts right here. But I do like just read, news later. But it's going to be a struggle because some of this stuff just sounds so ridiculous to be true. But it's like we're living in the presidential era of where these are high possibilities because of who we have in office. And I hope the fear of Trump, I hate that it's come down to just one person, but I hope that fear can be a catalyst. But then also, as Tammy said earlier, looking at the issues that really matter most to us and who was going to be our best chance at getting those issues rectified or worked on.
Gotcha.
And it's not Trump if I didn't make.
I agree. So, what can be done for the community and political leaders to bridge the gap so that important issues are handled accordingly, so that we can kind of fix that rapport between the community and the stereotypes that the community may have against people in politics?
I think a lot of that's on us as politicians. You've got to show and prove. I'm gonna use Sarah Carpenter, North Memphis finest, as an example. She didn't like no politicians, still don't most days, but she did not trust me. She didn't trust Michaelin for a long time because she's an example of, it's like when I ran for mayor and I was talking about like Blackness and why we needed a Black mayor. And people were like, been there, done that. We had Harrington, we had Wharton. Tell me more, right? So I think for Black people, it's not just enough for us to come around and make big promises, because we've had politicians making big promises for 40 years. And we still have Black people living in the conditions, even though we live in a city that's a majority city, where we're the majority of the city. And so you've almost got to prove it, right? So I think, and you gotta come back to the community, like if you spend 4 years and you've never had a town hall, you've never walked, some of the blocks in your neighborhood, you can't do it all. You can't walk every block in 4 years, but people know who's connected and who's not. I remember when I ran the first time in 2016 against John DeBerry and for state rep, and there were people who were like, yeah, no one's knocked on my door and asked for my vote in a decade. And they weren't just talking about that race, they were talking about period, and so I don't think it happens by November, but I think as more and more new people get elected, the Marquitas and the Tories and Michaelin and myself and JB, we have to set a new example of what we expect of engagement from politicians, because that's the only way we're going to heal that gap.
Thank you. Michaelin?
Yeah, I definitely agree. Just thinking of all the ways that we can be engaged and be visible. I know in my campaign in particular, I campaign on listening, being accessible, and being visible, because that's what people don't get. And what Tammy was saying when she said people hadn't had their door knocked on in years or decades, it's the same thing that a lot of us who are really doing the footwork got. And Memphis ain't that big, folks. It's a lot of square miles, but as far as people, and registered voters, it's not that big to where people should be able to say that over a 10, 12, 15-year period. And so we just have to think about in what ways are we reaching people. And now with COVID, we're having to rethink a lot of our basic go-tos. So what does the town hall look like? What does it mean to get out a message to all of your district? And a lot of that, to be visible and to be engaging, a lot of that we can't do on city or county money. So to bring up something that was brought up in my watch party comments from Jennifer, it doesn't have to just be, especially for local, it doesn't just have to be election time for you to help support your candidates, either physically through volunteer or financially. The only way that we can get the word or message out to everyone in mass is that it costs money, and we cannot use your tax money at the city and the county to do that. So she brought up about monthly, what did she say? I don't want to lie. She said, discussing monthly contributions and the need for us to put money directly to candidates when they're accepting donations, not just in the months leading up to election, but it also helps you help the people who you know are doing the work. So if you know your county, state, city representative is doing the work, help them do more of that. If you know that they've done something that probably reached 5% of their constituency and you want to see that go further or wider, see how you can really support us and help us do that. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of service. And I love it. And I'm sure Tammy does too. I know she said earlier, you got to think why you're doing this, and it's for the people. But in order to let folks know that you're doing things, you have to have the support and the help of others as well. I'm trying to think of the best ways that I can get out what's been happening so far to as many people as I can, without, taking out a personal loan at the bank. So just thinking about how we can support people already in office who are trying to be engaged and visible, and what that also means for being an engaged voter, and having those political conversations with your friends, your family, and people in your circle. So thank you, Jennifer, for bringing that point up.
Is this, are these questions from a separate, like from the watch party that you have? Because I'm looking and I'm like, I don't see the same thing. You're on mute.
I started a watch party, and that's where the folks are saying stuff at.
Oh, okay, got you. This hour passed by really, really fast, really fast. And I want to thank you both so much for joining me to talk about these issues that are very relevant now, in the past, in the future. Hopefully some of them we can cut down in the future. But I really appreciate everything, your input in all that you do for Memphis. And at this time, do any of you ladies have any last words for our Sister Reach viewers out there?
Well, first, thank you. And thank you to Sister Reach for the work y'all do in the community. Y'all support Sister Reach, reproductive justice work, get to know what it is. It's so many things. And I just really love being a partner with Sister Reach. So thank you so much, and for even doing this today. And I would just also say to the viewers 2 things: vote and run, because we need more people to run for office. And we need Black women to run for office. I love my brothers, but we need Black women to run. Let folks get used to us. Let it stop being an anomaly. And also changing the way people interface with Black women. The more of us there are. We shouldn't live in a city and a county that's 70% Black and 50% female, and I'm the only commissioner that's a Black woman. So run for office, vote, and get 5 people to vote with you this November.
Thank you. And Michael?
Well, I also want to say that I love and support Sister Reach for the work that you all are doing, the hard, thankless work that you all are doing in our reproductive justice community. So thank you all, and thank you for allowing us to be on here and allowing me to just share my thoughts and opinions on voting and the electoral process. And to those of you who are watching, one, thank you for being in tune to something that may not sound sexy off the top, Voter Town Hall. So one, thank you for having the option of being engaged in this type of conversation. And then also, I'm asking that, as I mentioned earlier, find your political trust buddies. Find people who you can discuss politics and elections with, and it doesn't sound like you're trying to be combative or argumentative, or that your conversation is draining. Find those people that you trust so that your circles can grow and that politics can be a normalized conversation. It shouldn't be something that's thought of to the side of something that we shouldn't discuss at the dinner table, or something that you can't talk about over drinks. This is your life. And so other folks will have a plan for you. But if we're not discussing what our plans for ourselves are and who's going to help us get there, then we'll never see the fruition of them ever. So we have to get comfortable with discussing these things, comfortable with even talking about who you're voting for. It's okay to tell people who you're going to vote for. It's okay, because we're going to see the results anyway. So normalize these conversations. It is okay. It's okay to talk to your children about these elections and politics before they turn 18. It's okay to talk to your parents. It's okay to talk to people on your job about these things. Yes, there is it's the only separation is between church and state. You can bring up politics anywhere else. So please normalize these conversations. Find your political trust buddy. Tammy said take 5. I'm adding another 5, so take 10, and that's not including yourself or the people in your household. So we got to get as many people as we can after these polls in November, because our lives depend on it. But thank you all for tuning in to this conversation and even opening your ears to the viewpoints of one of your favorite county commissioners and city council members.
District 7, as we say, hashtag them sevens.
Them sevens.
Them sevens.
Before we go, I have to do my job. Text "We Matter" to 797979 to get more information about Black voters, why they matter, and how you can get to the polls safely, and work you can do to organize people in November. We Matter to 797979.
For the people in the back that did not hear that. But I thank y'all so much. And what I really appreciate that you said, Tammy, is do research. Michael, and what you said, normalize conversations regarding politics. Please put those together, because I am very tired of having conversations with you, people that are not doing research. Please stop sending YouTube links and you don't have the real receipts. Like,
Brother Umar is not a resource, y'all.
Not Dr. Umar. Please, not Dr. Umar in school. But yes, and I raised your 10 to 15 at the polls. 15. Come on, let's get it. But and for the new viewers that are viewing from the video being shared, be sure to follow Sister Reach on Facebook. You can follow us on Twitter. You can follow us on Instagram, same handle, SISTERREACH. And don't forget to check out our website at www.sisterreach.org. Thank you again so much, ladies, for joining me for this wonderful discussion. And everybody have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.